An alleged FBI insider has made explosive new claims about Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, suggesting that key evidence from official investigations and court discussions may have been misunderstood or overlooked, and that the truth behind the disappearance could be very different from what we were told. On March 8, 2014, MH370 vanished after taking off from Kuala Lumpur, becoming one of the most investigated aviation mysteries in history. Now, these alleged revelations are reopening questions about what really happened in the cockpit and why the case remains unsolved to this day. At 12:41 a.m. local time on March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 set out from Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. On board were 227 passengers from 15 nations and 12 crew members. The pilot in command was 52-year-old Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah from Penang, who had joined Malaysia Airlines as a cadet pilot in 1981. The co-pilot was 26-year-old First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid. The flight was routine. The skies were clear. The plane climbed to its cruising altitude and settled in for what should have been a 6-hour journey north. Flight 370 reached a cruising altitude of 10,700 meters, about 35,000 feet, at 1:01 a.m. The Aircraft Communication Addressing and Reporting System, known as ACARS, sent its last transmission at 1:07 a.m. and was then switched off. At 1:19 a.m., Captain Zahari acknowledged a transition from Lumpur radar to Ho Chi Minh Air Control. Good night, Malaysian 370. Those were the last words anyone on the ground ever heard from Flight 370. The crew was expected to check in with Ho Chi Minh Area Control Center as the aircraft entered Vietnamese airspace. Vietnamese controllers asked nearby aircraft to attempt to reach Flight 370 on the International Air Distress Frequency, but none were able to establish confirmed communication. Then things took a turn that would baffle the world for over a decade. About 40 minutes after its departure, nearly all electronic communications from the Boeing 777 stopped. It disappeared from air traffic control radars. The aircraft was lost from ATC's secondary surveillance radar screens minutes later, but was tracked by the Malaysian military's primary radar system for another hour, deviating westward from its planned flight path. Instead of continuing north toward Beijing, data from Malaysian military radar suggests that MH370 made a sharp left turn soon after entering Vietnamese airspace. It then headed southwest back over the Malayan Peninsula, before flying northwest up the Strait of Malacca between Indonesia and Malaysia. There, it was lost beyond radar range. This was not a malfunction. Authorities determined that it was a deliberate act. Someone on that aircraft turned off the transponder, disabled ACARS, and manually redirected the plane on a path that avoided radar detection, with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of the region's air defense gaps. For more than 7 hours after it dropped off flight radars, MH370 sent handshakes, routine communications with a satellite network, confirming that it was still flying, meaning the plane had not suffered some sudden catastrophic event. Analysis of satellite communications between the aircraft and Inmarsat's satellite network concluded that the flight continued until at least 8:19 a.m. and flew south into the southern Indian Ocean. Then, silence. The handshakes stopped. The plane was gone. The cause of its disappearance has not been determined. It is widely regarded as the greatest mystery in aviation history and remains the single deadliest case of aircraft disappearance. But within hours of that disappearance, the FBI was already looking at one man, and what they found on his personal computer would either crack the case wide open or be buried so deep that it took a leaked document to bring it to light. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah was not just any commercial airline pilot. Captain of the Boeing 737-400 in 1991. Captain of the Airbus A330-300 in 1996. Captain of the Boeing 777-200 in 1998. He had been a type rating instructor and examiner since 2007 and had logged a total of 18,365 hours of flying experience. Was a captain on the 777 for more than 15 years and was an exceptionally experienced training captain. But it was what he had built inside his own home that caught the FBI's attention. Captain Zahari had constructed an elaborate flight simulator in his house. A full setup using Microsoft Flight Simulator X software that he had painstakingly assembled himself. The captain had boasted on YouTube of building the simulator himself. He had posted videos about it online. For his friends and family, it was just another expression of a man who lived and breathed flying. There was some dispute over just how much to make of the fact that the pilot built his own flight simulator in the first place. His friends described him as something of an aviation geek, and other pilots suggested having a personal simulator is relatively common in the industry. But in the days after March 8, 2014, Malaysian police descended on Zahari's home and seized the simulator's hard drives. The FBI began examining the homemade flight simulator, and a key question was trying to determine what the captain had deleted, and whether it was key to the investigation. The simulator's hard drive and data were taken from the home of Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, as part of investigators' efforts to determine whether the crew could have been complicit in whatever happened. And there was something peculiar about that hard drive. Files containing records of simulations carried out on the program were deleted February 3, just over a month before MH370 vanished. The Malaysian police chief confirmed this publicly. The question nobody could answer at the time was, why would a professional pilot delete simulation data from a hobby setup in his own home? Pilots run hundreds of simulations. They explore airports, weather conditions, instrument failures. Deleting records of such sessions would be unremarkable under normal circumstances. But the timing, 5 weeks before the plane disappeared, drew intense scrutiny. CBS News confirmed the FBI had been provided electronic data to analyze from the flight simulator. It was expected the hard drive would be brought to an FBI lab in the United States. The simulator was sent to the FBI's lab in Quantico, Virginia. What the FBI found and what they said about it would become one of the most contested chapters in the entire MH370 saga. Initially, the verdict was clear. In April 2014, barely a month after the disappearance, an American official briefed the media. They have finished with the simulator. There's nothing suspicious whatsoever about what they found. The senior U.S. official told ABC News. The official said, "Case closed, not remotely, because what the public was told in 2014 and what surfaced in 2016 told two very different stories." For 2 years, the official narrative from both the FBI and the Malaysian government was consistent. The home flight simulator contained nothing sinister. The United States Federal Bureau of Investigation reconstructed the deleted data from Captain Shaw's home flight simulator, and a Malaysian government spokesman indicated that nothing sinister had been found on it. Then, in July 2016, everything changed. New York Magazine wrote that a confidential document from the Malaysian police investigation showed an FBI analysis of the flight simulator's computer hard drive, found a route on Captain Zahari's home flight simulator that closely matched the projected flight over the Indian Ocean, and that this evidence had been withheld from the publicly released investigative report. The revelation was staggering. According to the magazine's reporting, the plane's captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, conducted a simulated flight deep into the remote southern Indian Ocean less than a month before the plane vanished under uncannily similar circumstances. The leaked document, described as a confidential report from Malaysian police investigators, detailed what the FBI had actually recovered from those deleted files. The FBI recovered deleted data points from the flight simulator on Zahari's hard drive, and the document stated, "We found a flight path that led to the southern Indian Ocean, among the numerous other flight paths charted on the flight simulator that could be of interest." According to the document, the FBI analyzed hard drives from the flight simulator Zahari had built using Microsoft Flight Simulator X software. The FBI was able to recover data points from the program that pointed to the southern Indian Ocean. The simulated flight was made less than a month before MH370 went missing in March 2014. This was not a vague correlation. The FBI documents alleged Zahari had plotted a course into the deep southern Indian Ocean on his home flight simulator, and the course the FBI recovered closely matched the final flight MH370 took before it disappeared. The confirmation came swiftly from an unlikely source, Australia. Australia's Joint Agency Coordination Center confirmed that the captain of MH370, Zahari Ahmad Shah, appeared to have conducted a flight on the simulator to the southern Indian Ocean less than a month before the plane vanished, along a similar route. The Joint Agency Coordination Center spokesman was direct. The MH370 captain's flight simulator showed someone had plotted a course to the southern Indian Ocean. He confirmed, but there was a critical caveat. The agency cautioned that evidence of the route did not prove that Zahari had planned to steer the plane off course, and showed only the possibility of planning for such an event. The simulator information shows only the possibility of planning. It does not reveal what happened on the night of the aircraft's disappearance, nor where the aircraft is located. Now, here was where the story became deeply complicated, because while the FBI's recovered data pointed to the southern Indian Ocean, Malaysia cleared Shah of any wrongdoing and withheld the FBI's findings from its final report. There was confusion over whether Malaysian authorities ever received the information. Malaysia's national police chief said Malaysian police had never handed any such document to any authority abroad. On the other hand, Malaysia's own transport minister had confirmed 2 years earlier that Malaysia was working with the FBI to analyze data from the simulator's hard drives. So either the Malaysian government received the FBI's findings and chose to suppress them, or the Malaysian police and the Malaysian Transport Ministry were publicly contradicting one another about one of the most consequential pieces of evidence in aviation history. Neither explanation inspires confidence. Meanwhile, the FBI itself had gone from declaring nothing suspicious whatsoever in April 2014 to having its own recovered data showing a simulated route into the southern Indian Ocean leaked to the press in 2016. Nobody from the Bureau publicly reconciled those two positions, and their investigation? Zahari Shah is suspected of a crime, and until he is no longer a suspect, or is found dead, or is presumed to be dead with a high certainty, the investigation will remain open and information will not be released. That was the FBI's stated position in response to Freedom of Information requests filed by independent researchers. The case, as of the most recent reporting, remains open. If the FBI's simulator data represented the forensic evidence, then the portrait of Captain Zahari's personal life in the weeks before the flight represented the circumstantial case, and it was messy, contradictory, and deeply painful for his family. Shortly after Flight 370's disappearance, media reports revealed that Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah's wife and 3 children moved out of his house the day before the disappearance, and a friend claimed that Captain Shah was seeing another woman. Claims of domestic problems were denied by Shah's family, but not everyone close to him painted the same picture. A fellow pilot and longtime associate of Shah stated, "Friends of Zahari Shah claimed the pilot was lonely and sad." Then there was the political dimension. Captain Shah was a supporter of Malaysian opposition politician Anwar Ibrahim. At the time of the crash, Zahari came under scrutiny, amid unsubstantiated reports that he was upset over the jail sentence handed to Malaysian opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim hours before the plane took off, and one detail remained unexplained. Police were investigating reports that Shah received a 2-minute phone call prior to the flight's departure from an unidentified woman using a mobile phone number obtained with a false identity. No public explanation for that call has ever been provided by Malaysian investigators. Now, the theory had a shape: a distraught pilot, devastated by the collapse of his marriage, rattled by the imprisonment of a political figure he admired, sitting at home running simulated flights into the remote southern Indian Ocean, then deleting the evidence. Weeks later, he takes the controls of a real 777, says "Goodnight, Malaysian 370," turns off the transponder, banks the plane hard to the left, and flies for 7 hours into oblivion. Experts hypothesize that MH370 was deliberately and rapidly depressurized, rendering passengers dead within minutes. Passenger oxygen masks provide 15 minutes of oxygen at best. Pilots have access to several hours' worth. This would have allowed a pilot to keep flying for hours without disturbances. The murder-suicide theory wasn't a fringe idea whispered on internet forums. It was, according to one of the most powerful people in the investigation, the working assumption of the Malaysian government itself. Tony Abbott was Prime Minister of Australia when MH370 disappeared. In February 2020, 6 years after the plane vanished, Abbott disclosed in a Sky News documentary, "My very clear understanding from the very top levels of the Malaysian government is that from very, very early on they thought it was murder-suicide by the pilot." Abbott didn't mince words. "I want to be absolutely crystal clear. It was understood at the highest levels that this was almost certainly murder-suicide by the pilot," he said. He added that he did not believe conspiracy theories, that Malaysia resisted the theory to avoid embarrassment. Malaysia's response was cautious. Former Prime Minister Najib Razak said that a possible pilot suicide was never ruled out, but it would be unfair and legally irresponsible to pin the blame on Zahari as the black boxes had not been found. Malaysian Police Chief Abdul Hamid Bador, who was one of the investigators, told local media that there was no evidence of Zahari's involvement. Shah's family fought back fiercely against the narrative, even though an investigation by Malaysian police found no evidence that Zahari was suffering any personal or financial stresses at the time. His sister said he remained a scapegoat and that she had to defend him. They did their tests in 2014. There was nothing incriminating in his activities. His sister Sakinab Shah said, "The FBI did their tests. If there was anything, the police would be the first people to know." That's why this story has been dismissed. Sakinab insisted that her brother had a passion for life, for family, and above all, for flying, who will stop at nothing to render help when it is needed. The Malaysian government's own official report from 2018 appeared to side with the family. Lead investigator Kok Soo-chan dismissed the suicide theory, saying, "We have examined the pilot and the first officer, and we are quite satisfied with their background, with their training, with their mental health. We are not of the opinion that it could have been an event committed by the pilot." But the Australian investigators saw it differently. The ATSD's investigation concluded that the pilot, Zahari Ahmad Shah, was probably unconscious when the plane crashed. A flaperon was found off the coast of Tanzania, suggesting the flaps had not been deployed and that the plane was uncontrolled or barely controlled at the time of the crash. So even among investigators, there was a split. Malaysia said the pilot was not responsible. Australia said the plane was uncontrolled at the end. The FBI's leaked data said the pilot practiced the route, and the FBI's official position in 2014 said they found nothing suspicious whatsoever. Perhaps the most haunting element of the MH370 story is this. Despite the largest search effort in aviation history, the plane has never been found. The governments of Malaysia, China, and Australia made a joint commitment to thoroughly search 120,000 square kilometers of seafloor. This phase of the search, which began on October 6, 2014, used 3 vessels equipped with towed deep-water vehicles that use side-scan sonar, multi-beam echo sounders, and video cameras to locate and identify aircraft debris. A comprehensive survey of 120,000 square kilometers of seafloor, about 1,800 kilometers southwest of Perth, Western Australia, yielded no evidence of the aircraft. The only confirmed physical proof that the plane had met its end came not from the search area, but from thousands of kilometers away. On July 29, 2015, a piece of marine debris, later confirmed to be a flaperon from Flight 370, was found on Réunion Island. Investigators matched a serial number on the flaperon to parts used in the manufacture of the Malaysia Airlines plane. It is now possible to state with certainty that the flaperon found on July 29, 2015, corresponds to Flight MH370, French investigators said. That single barnacle-covered wing piece, washed up on a beach on a French island in the Western Indian Ocean, was the first physical confirmation that the plane had indeed gone down. Somewhere in that vast body of water, over the following year and a half, 26 more pieces of debris were found on the shores of Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa, Madagascar, and Mauritius. 3 of the 27 pieces were positively identified as coming from Flight 370. 2 pieces came from the cabin interior, suggesting the plane had broken up, but whether it broke apart in the air or on impact with the ocean could not be determined. Study of the Réunion wing flaperon and a piece of the right wing flap found in Tanzania showed that the plane had not undergone a controlled descent. The plane had not been guided to a water landing. That last detail carried enormous significance. If the plane wasn't guided to a water landing at the end, then either the pilot was already dead or incapacitated when it hit the water, or the aircraft ran out of fuel and spiraled downward uncontrolled. Some experts, however, disagreed. Many aviation experts believe that the shearing damage evident on the trailing edges of the flap and flaperon, coupled with the minimal damage on the leading edges, strongly suggests a controlled ditching as the likely end-of-flight scenario. This perspective contrasts with the ATSB's hypothesis of a high-speed, uncontrolled plummet following fuel exhaustion. In 2018, Ocean Infinity, a private marine robotics company, took up the search. The search, based on refined coordinates, was resumed in January 2018 by Ocean Infinity. It ended in June 2018 without success. Then, in 2025, the world thought it might finally get answers. On February 25, 2025, Malaysia announced the start of a new search for MH370 to be conducted by Ocean Infinity. The mission was planned to cover an area of 15,000 square kilometers in the southern Indian Ocean to be searched over 18 months. The search would be conducted under a no-find, no-fee agreement, with the Malaysian government pledging a $70 million reward for the discovery of the wreckage. The world held its breath, but the ocean kept its secrets. The renewed deep-sea search by Ocean Infinity concluded without locating the aircraft's wreckage. The search, conducted between March 2025 and January 2026, under the no-find, no-fee agreement, surveyed thousands of square kilometers in the southern Indian Ocean. This marked another unsuccessful attempt to find the Boeing 777, which disappeared in March 2014 with 239 people. The search activities undertaken have not yielded any findings that confirm the location of the aircraft wreckage, the AAIB stated. And so here we are, 12 years, hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of ocean floor scanned, hundreds of millions of dollars spent. No wreckage, no black boxes, no bodies, no closure. The FBI's investigation remains open. Their forensic data from the simulator, the route into the southern Indian Ocean, practiced and then deleted weeks before the disappearance, remains the single most compelling piece of evidence, connecting Captain Zahari to a deliberate act, but the FBI has never publicly stated that Zahari was responsible. Malaysia cleared him. Australia's former Prime Minister says the Malaysians told him privately that it was murder-suicide. The families are left in limbo, suspended between grief and uncertainty. CNN's aviation correspondent Richard Quest, who wrote a book about the disappearance, captured the fundamental problem when he said, "This theory that the captain did it has been around since day one, and this program didn't really advance the argument as to the evidence that proves it. I promise you there is not a single shred of new evidence as to what happened to that plane. There's lots of extrapolation, there's lots of conclusions, and people thinking if you take 1 and 1, it must equal 2. Was it the pilot? Was it a mechanical catastrophe so bizarre that it mimicked deliberate sabotage? Was it a hijacking gone wrong? Was it something else entirely? The debris says the plane went down in the Indian Ocean. The satellite data says the plane flew south for 7 hours. The FBI data says the captain practiced that route. The Malaysian government says he didn't do it. And the wreckage, the one thing that could definitively end the debate, sits somewhere on the floor of one of the deepest, most remote stretches of ocean on Earth, untouched and unseen, holding 239 stories that have never been told. The families of the victims vow to continue the fight for answers, and the rest of the world is left to wrestle with what may be the most disturbing possibility of all, that we already know the answer, and we just can't prove it.